All right, in today's webinar, we are going to share the do's and don'ts of social media, and I'm going to share with you a really cool case study to help you leverage your social media influence. Let's go! Woo! All right, welcome back, everybody. We're landing with some fire. Woo-wee! See? Take two. Always works better when you have a second ball in the pocket when you're playing golf, right? So gang, welcome back. This is the part 2 of the conversation for the ICE program. If you ever remember, open up that chat box and jump in there and type in what you believe and you think ICE stands for. And if you're not sure, if you're not quick on typing, I'll give it to you. I stands for influence, the C stands for the communicate, and the E stands for enroll, which is just another fancy way of saying building a team. Engaging people, bringing people on your team to work with you. That's just the fun way of putting that out there as well. So we're going to have some fun here tonight. And what I'm going to do is I have a couple pretty lofty promises for you. So tonight, as I alluded in the intro, I'm going to share with you some do's and don'ts for social media investors. Now, like I said in the preamble before we got started here, there's an awful lot more don'ts that I see out in the marketplace than I see of the do's that are out there. But I'm going to share with you some what I consider gold standard, excellent examples. And I'm also going to share with what I don't want any of you to do. So that's promise number 1. Then promise number 2 is I'm going to show you a repurposing strategy. How do you leverage doing something once that you can leverage it to do 20, 30, 40, 50 pieces of content out of one piece and let it live on for months and months and months and be out there like little soldiers out in the marketplace, just working hard for you? And how do you leverage sharing your message? All right, gang. So we got some fun stuff on the go. 2 big, giant, lofty promises here for you. And like I said, and the first one we're going to do here is I'm going to share with you some key do's and don'ts. And I actually had some fun finding some of these do's and don'ts here. And honest to goodness, to find the don'ts, it was very simple. And I'll share that with you here in a second. But here's some of the do's. Now, when I'm about to share with the do's, you guys are going to go, well, Russ, not one thing you're telling me of these do's is rocket science. It truly isn't. Every single thing on the do's list, every single one of you 100% can do this. I know you can. So make sure that you sit there and so number 1 is authentically share and give without any expectation of a return. Like literally just genuinely share, right? If you jump onto a lot of my Facebook posts or a lot of my YouTube channel or my podcast, I 100% genuinely just share. I have a couple calls to action there. Honest to goodness, the most call to action I have is leave a review. So what I ask people to do is go on, put in 5 stars and leave a review. That's really all I ask. I don't have an expectation of that, but I ask if you could do that. That would be really, really nice. Okay. Share your wins and your losses, not just the good. Share the bad. Be authentic on what you're sharing, right? Inspire, encourage, acknowledge others in your posts. It's not all about me, I. Look at me. I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. What was there before sliced bread? Go figure, right? And then the last one is the simplest thing. If you're really questionable what you should do on social media, just be a good person. Like seriously, it's not that difficult in today. Let me back up. It shouldn't be that difficult to be a good person in today's day and age. It shouldn't be. But sometimes common sense is not common knowledge, right? Or common implementation. So by all means, guys, those are some of the do's. Now, here's what I'm going to have some fun on. I found some examples. Now, interesting in some of the examples that I found for you guys was a couple of them were the same examples I shared last week. Interesting of note was a couple of them were the same. So here's a couple examples. Let me get full screen here for you. So Arlen Dolan just recently put a post one day ago. He put out this wonderful post about a real estate investing tip of what to do when a tenant wants to break their lease early. Big, long article that he wrote. It was 100% to give and just share from his 27 years of experience. Fantastic post. If you haven't started following Arlen, highly encourage you to. Second, Edward Fajardo. I'm not sure if Edward's on here or not tonight, but he shared a wonderful post about talking about, I've been talking about my wins, and here's a loss that I had. To be long story short, I had a property under contract. I couldn't quite reel the money together. You know what? I was sad to see it go. It was under market value. It had lots of opportunity, had lots of stuff. But you know what? Sometimes you just can't win them all. It was a fantastic post. And then this third post is something, it's a long read, and I'm not going to bore everybody with reading it for you. But this is a post by Prestigious Properties. Now, if you're not sure who Prestigious Properties is Thomas Byers' company. Now, Thomas, this is a sponsored post. So he's paying, I found it on his website, but he's also paying for this. So if you've ever gone on Thomas's Facebook feed, you probably have seen this as a paid sponsored post. Now I share with this. Now I'm not going to scroll down. There's a lot in here, and maybe what I'll do is in the replay page, I'll put a link to the full posts in there, just so you guys can have that as an example, and you can take a look at it as well. But here's the gist of Thomas's post: is it talks about he flat out is soliciting capital. He flat out puts a targeted return on investment, and you're about to see he's breaking a couple of the rules. But what he does is he puts extremely detailed information and what I would call CYA, cover your backside, cover your assets, disclaimers. And he puts very clear in there who this is for. This is friends and family. This is an exempt market dealer that's doing this. He puts a lot of disclaimers in there, which is the right way to do it if you're soliciting capital. Okay, so that's from the do's side of things. Now, from the don'ts, here's so you could take the do's and do the opposite, but let's talk about that. Don't solicit funds on any public domain social media without disclaimers or CYA statements. Like I said, cover your assets statements, okay? Never guarantee a return. Even if it's a secondary loan position, right? And it's going to be 10%. I would not guarantee it, because just those words of guarantee and return just set up some flags, okay? Don't make, I put in stars, stuff up, and don't puff things up. Don't make them bigger than they are. Now, I put that one in there and I put a little asterisk beside it, because that was one of the biggest mistakes and one of the biggest lessons that I've learned early on. And this was more early in my investing career, that I was puffing things up. Right? I was making it look a little grandiose. I was making it look bigger than it was, because, I was, number one, I was excited, and I truly was. But number two is maybe I just had a little bit of an insecurity, right? I had a little insecurity of maybe somebody saying no. So I had to try to go overboard. It's like the story of my life is I try to do way too much because I have an insecurity of looking bad and failing and stuff like that. Just something that I have to get over, right? Just that perfectionism. It's one of those tough ones. And I always remember just from growing up, it's just one of those demons that I battle every single day. So if you are struggling to do this, guys, you're not alone, right? But here's what I would encourage you to do is just share the real numbers of what you believe the real numbers are. You don't have to puff it up. You don't have to make it look bigger. You don't have to, make things more grandiose than they are, right? Because here's the thing is, typically when it comes to real estate investing, you have an amazing opportunity already, right? Honestly, just with real estate in a normal marketplace that's growing at the pace of inflation with nominal cash flow, mortgage pay down, and a nominal growth, you're looking at, you probably are generating anywhere between 15 and 18% return on money, right? Just in a really simple, boring marketplace, okay? So you don't have to really puff things up, but sometimes there are some opportunities that look really good. Now, okay, so here was the fun thing that I had. So I'm going to give you a few examples now. So honest to goodness, let me come back here. You want to know how easy it is to find examples of what not to do? I went on to one Facebook group and I found these first three, and I found this within probably 47 seconds. I went into one Facebook group that I know is pretty notorious for pitching of investable opportunities. I just know it. I think there's like 6,000 people in it. And that's all anybody ever does there is just pitch stuff in it. And it's a lot of realtors, blah, blah, blah. But all I did was I went to the Facebook group. And in Facebook groups, there's a little search window. You can actually search for a term within a group. All I did was I typed in one word, and that word was returns, right? I typed in returns, and in that one Facebook group, and I had just a whole pile of things to choose from within seconds. Okay, so here would be a couple of the examples I would share with you that you should not do. All right, so this person here, this group here, I think it was a group that they were talking about. It was a 29-unit portfolio. I tried to hide out all to protect the innocent, I guess, the guilty here. We're projecting that our investors will see a full return. So they're talking about 100% return of their money plus a bonus payout in 12 months. That's what they're talking about. Now, I don't doubt that maybe they can do it, but I would never post this in a public domain. The second one, I think this was almost the same group talked about, is they're talking about a bonus payout, full, 100% return. And then this one here was, hello investors, we're 3 weeks away from closing our new construction property, needing a few investors, that'll get a 20+% return in 12 months. Holy macaroni. They're setting themselves up. Now, honest to goodness, if it took me seconds to find this on these Facebook groups, just imagine a securities official or somebody who's out there who does this for a living. They would just have honest to goodness, they'd have a field day, right? It'd be like shooting fish in a barrel with all the stuff that's going on out there. Now, what I encourage each and every one of you is to not do those kind of things. Like don't have those kind of examples. And if I do, so here's what maybe I would suggest you do, if you will, is if you ever have a question about, am I crossing a line or something like that, post it or send it to me or things like that. I'd love to give you a second opinion, but just follow those do's and don'ts, right? If you don't guarantee anything, if you don't publicly solicit that you need money, right? And those kind of things, if you should be okay from an advertising posting perspective. Now, here's what I do, and I just want to give you this. So I always have this in mind. So here's what I'm always thinking about. Okay. So my mindset is as follows. I always want to ask and answer the following question. If I'm going to work with somebody, okay, on a joint venture relationship or a money partner, how well do I know them, right? Seriously, how well do I know them and how can I prove it? Do I have a paper trail of evidence on how well I know them? And, we're going to be providing some more additional resources for each and every one of you guys here too. There's a lot of resources on the Raising Capital Academy already. And I'm also just firming up a time with a securities lawyer to jump on here as well to just even do this even more. But here's the thing I want to share with you. Okay. How well do I know the person and do I have a paper trail? So might as well do it. Let's do it as an example. Let's just I'm going to use an example of Michael Bug. There's lots of Mikes on here tonight, but I'm going to pick a Mike who's not here. Michael Bug out of Saskatoon. Okay. I met Mike at a conference in Edmonton. Mike walked up to me, he was on crutches. He had torn ligaments in his knee. And I'd never, ever met Michael before in my life at that time. And that was 2018. So 4 years ago. Okay. Came up. Wonderful conversation. He and his wife, wonderful people. We just got to know each other. And then we continued the conversation going forward. Mike reached out to me a couple times. He entered into a coaching relationship for 2 years. Mike Bug is just taking things up to the next level. I've been to their house. I know his wife's names. I know the parents' names. I know where their parents actually live, where they farm in Saskatchewan. I know their brand new baby that was just born on October 11th. I have detailed notes of Michael Bug in my CRM about how well I know him. Okay. Now, if Mike Bug and I did a joint venture together and anybody ever came to me and said, well, Russell, you're doing that joint venture. Why are you doing that joint venture? Well, I'm using a friend's, family, and business associates exemption to the Securities Act. Okay. I know Michael Bug and his wife Rosalie so well. As a matter of fact, I could produce pages and pages and pages of notes about how well I know them. They're a close personal friend. Okay. So that's the question I always want to answer in my head is number one is, how how well do I know the person and do I have a paper trail? And like I mentioned, more details are forthcoming. Okay, so that's where I wanted to just share with that. Now, what I want to do is I just want to pivot from the do's and the don'ts. Now, we can go into more of a detail of that if any of you need more information or more protection mechanisms or disclaimers or stuff like that. I'll continue adding more content to that in that vein. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to share a case study with each and every one of you. Now, the fun case study that I'm going to share with you here is my own. Okay, this is one that I've done. And like I said earlier, I think I hit before I hit the record button, I honestly, when I was doing the work on putting this case study together, it got me fired up. And I actually got, a little bit upset with myself, and I got fired up. The upset I got with myself was, why the heck aren't I doing more of this? Because it works. I know it works. And then on the other is, okay, so let's make a plan. Let's do the work here. And I'm going to share with you the strategy on how you can repurpose content. Okay. And the main thing, as real estate investors, one of the main things we like out of this whole game is we like leverage. We like the leverage. I believe you should, everybody says, well, work smarter, not harder. No, I think you should do both. You should work hard and you should work smart. Why is it a zero-sum game, right? Work hard and work smart. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you something here of one podcast episode that I did, that I recorded audio and video, that has now turned into 30 plus pieces of content that has generated more than 6,000 downloads over the past, and I think it's 8 months, and maybe even 9 months and counting. Okay. It's still working hard for me right now, today. And I checked my stats, and I'll jump in if you want. I can check in my Google Analytics, my stats here as well. Within the last 48 hours, it's had another 20 views on one of the videos, just one of the videos. Okay. So it's still working hard for me out there. All right. So, and it's 100%, it's a case study, real life numbers, as real as it gets. Okay. So first and foremost, some context and some background. Number one is it does take time to do this. It really does. It's something that with time and effort, you can get a little bit quicker at it, but it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of strategy. It's going to take some resources. It's going to take some planning. The good news is you can either do it yourself or you potentially can outsource it. That's a great news, is if you can potentially outsource this as well. But I encourage you probably to do it yourself to start, to just kind of get the lay of the land and understand what's going on, and then outsource it from there, right? There will be a tech investment. Don't fear the tech, okay? The good news is the majority of everybody on here tonight, if you have a computer that has a webcam, or you have one of these fancy dancy things like here, phones, you have the tech, okay? And it will take a little bit of skill development. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell you here is 100%, if I can do this, country bumpkin from small town Saskatchewan, growing up in a mobile home, in the mobile home park, if this is something, if I can do this, every single one of you guys have got this going away in spades, right? The game of hearts, right? You're going away with your full flush with what you got going. Like, seriously, you got this. All right. So this is a case study that I'm going to share with you. Some of you have seen this podcast episode or watched the video. This was fun story. Let me tell a little backstory here. So this fellow here obviously is myself and a fellow named Ben Rabideau. Ben Rabideau is out of Ontario. He is a market researcher with Edge Analytics. Fantastic researcher. And I met Ben a long time ago, quite a while ago. And I reconnected with him again when I heard him on another podcast. I heard him on another podcast, the Rockstar podcast with Tom and Nick Karadza out of Toronto. And I honestly, my earbuds just about popped out of my ear when I heard him talk about a guy out of Ontario talking about Alberta is poised to be the best place in Canada to invest your money in the real estate market. And it was these guys from Ontario talking about it. And my earbuds just about popped out. And so I looked at it and I go, holy macaroni. So I started following him on Twitter. And then Ben made a post another time and said, yeah, Alberta is going to be the best place, to invest your money over the next coming 5 to 10 years. Something of that nature. And then I replied back to Ben and said, Ben, shh, Don't tell everybody. It's our little secret, because there was people saying, well, why would you want to move to Alberta? It sucks. The winter's bad. Bunch of hillbillies, all that kind of stuff. And I said, sure, you guys all just stay away. Everybody stay away. And then Ben said, and then I sent a private message to Ben. I said, Ben, would you like to come on my podcast and talk about it? And he replied back and said, fantastic. So we booked the time. Okay. So that's that's the backstory to what we have there is right there. So this is the YouTube thumbnail, and I'm going to share with you the full-on case study of what we've done from this one going forward. So here's a couple things I want you to keep in mind. Number one is I'm going to share with you a winning formula. I'm big on frameworks. I'm big on formulas. I'm big on things that repeat. So here's the formula. I want everybody to write this down, or better yet, I want you to take a picture of this slide when I'm just about done, and I'll smile. And then what you're going to do is then you're going to post that on social media. I want you to think PRP. Now, it's very strategic the way I did the P, big P, little r, big P. Okay, what does PRP stand for? It stands for pre-plan, record, post-production. That's the 3-part formula. And I've even broke it down into, here is actually the amount of time that you'll be spending on this. If you pre-plan 30% of the time, if you record only 10% of the time, and your post-production will be 60% of the time. Okay? So everybody, I want you to write that. So here's what I want everybody to do. I want you to grab your camera, please, if you have an opportunity. I want you to take a picture of you with your camera out here like this, kind of in selfie mode. And if you're watching me, right, take a picture of me in the screen. Are we ready? I hope you got your camera. If you're not watching on this, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's the formula that I want everybody to keep in mind here. Now, so pre-plan. So the first thing I did, so within this case study, the first thing I did with Ben, once I had the time already booked and planned, I put together so remember, it's 30% of your time to create a plan of what you're going to record. Now, when I'm creating the pre-plan, I'm thinking about the recording, and I'm also thinking about the edit while I'm creating the conversation. Okay. So there's an old saying in video world is always, plan and shoot for the edit, which means that how you're going to record it and how you're going to tell the story, think about how you're going to edit it at the same time. Because remember, the post-production is the longest time frame. And the more minutes you can save off the post-production time, the more better product you can have. Right? I created an intention document. I didn't create a detail, like I created, I think my intention document is about 4 or 5 pages that I literally will create an intention document and a list of questions that I want to have in there. And I craft the story, the long form story. And then I also build in there bite-size chunks within there that I can break them out. Okay. And you'll see as I go through it. So think about this when you're pre-planning. Tell a story, but can you break it into acts, if you will, like a 3-act play or highlight reel materials? So craft a story. And then here's the thing is, the more time you take on the pre-planning, the better you pre-plan, the easier the next 2 steps are. Like anything in life, truly anything in life. So that's pre-plan. Then the next you want to do is you want to record. Okay. Now this is where most people get a little bit freaked out, is in the whole record side of things. Remember, only 10% of your time should be recording. If you've done a really good job with the pre-planning, the recording takes care of itself. It truly does. And I encourage everybody to start simple. Every single one of you has what you need to start. You have a recording device in your office, in your home, in your pocket. You have it right now. You don't need any big giant, fancy lights and cameras and, teleprompters and monitors and all that kind of stuff, and video and audio effects and, dropping bombs. You don't need any of you don't need any of that stuff. You honestly don't. I just do it for a little bit of a break in the action to engage you guys a little bit more. But honest to goodness, you guys don't need that to start. You truly don't. You have the device in your hand to do the recording. Okay. So what I encourage you to do is each time is just improve the process. Okay. You're going to make the commitment to do it And most importantly, you're going to make the commitment to improve the workflow, improve the process. And I got something to share with you at the end of this presentation as well about what can happen in a short period of time. Really, it can. And then the last one, if none of that it works for you guys, is think about this. Just hit the damn button. Right? That's what I have to remind myself all the time when I'm just not feeling it and I got the excuse after this and this excuse and that excuse. Hit the damn button. Go, talk, right? See what you got. And if it's garbage, you know what? Throw it away. You're better by hitting the button and producing garbage than not hitting the button and all not doing anything. So just hit the damn button, y'all. All right. So that's in step one. Remember, first one was pre-plan, big P, little r for recording. And then the last one is on post-production. Now, this is 60% of the time. Remember that. 60% of your time. There's going to be time and money is going to be required typically for this post-production. But here's the good news. The good news is you can outsource this. When it comes to for outsourcing of this, you can't outsource you on a camera. Potentially you can. You can write a script and you can get a voiceover actor to read it and you can get images and you can create something. I guess you could do that. But you're the subject matter expert, okay? Be the subject matter expert. And then what you do is you record, you plan, you have the conversation, and then potentially everything else you can outsource. You truly can. But I encourage you to do the reps, to at least understand the process, okay? Before you hiring it out fully. Try to do it a few times yourself just to understand the process. You know, one of the most, I don't think I used him as an example here, but I'm going to share with you some examples here in a second of repurposing. But one of the best examples of repurposing is Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. He still does all his own posts. He doesn't do all the video work and all the video editing. He still does a lot of his own posts because he's sweating the details. He's on his phone. He's cranking out the best way of where to put the picture and where to put the image and stuff like that on the algorithm, on the Instagram stories, so it doesn't cover up stuff. And he's really sweating the details. So by all means, do that. You can outsource a lot of the creative, but you should be still doing the posting because it's still your voice. It's still your words. Okay, so now, like I said, here are a few excellent repurposing examples. All right, so example number one I'm going to share with you is, we all know Joe Rogan, right? We've all heard of Joe Rogan, and this was Joe Rogan and Elon Musk talking, and honest to goodness, what did they just rolled up there and smoked a big fatty and they had a whole bunch of drinks and smoked pot and talked for a couple hours, and that was an episode. But I tell you, Joe Rogan his team took that and they carved it up into a whole bunch of things. And one of the things that went viral was Elon Musk smoking a joint. Tesla stock tanks after Elon Musk smokes a joint on the Joe Rogan Experience. Okay, but that's an example of a repurposing. Another fantastic example, if you've ever get a chance to watch Patrick Bet-David with Valuetainment. Patrick Bet-David does a fantastic job on his podcast episode. He puts it out, and honest to goodness, I think he creates about 20 or 25 different clips from that. I think he even has a completely different channel on the Patrick Bet-David. And the third one here, Mel Robbins is one of my favorite authors. She's fantastic at the social media game as well. She just started a podcast, but she has a wonderful YouTube channel. And when she's on other people's YouTube channels, she gets all the content and all the materials, and then she just breaks it into bite-sized chunks. So by all means, gang, what I encourage you to is be a student, okay? Be a student of good examples. Now, I shared examples with you of people that are not in the real estate space. It doesn't have to be in the real estate space. Why don't you take the experts that are in different spaces, and then by all means, model that from there as well. Okay, so now back to the case study again one more time. So this was an interview I did with Ben Rabideau. It was about an hour in content, okay? So here was the end result out of this. So end result number one was I created a podcast and a blog post out of it. Okay. So it got put on my Apple podcast. It got distributed to all the whole places that podcasts go out to. It got distributed out from there. And then I actually put it on every podcast I put on my blog post as well for the SEO to come back to my website. So that's 2 things that was done there as well. Then from there on YouTube, I put the full length hour, and I recorded an intro and an outro, and I put maybe just a little context message in it. And the full YouTube video got posted on my YouTube channel. Okay. Then also from there, 3 additional YouTube videos got created. One was in there, Ben talked about, I asked him a question about, what are you afraid of in the marketplace right now? What's keeping you awake at night? And I put a catchy little thing there, watch out, something that, a researcher is frightened about in this marketplace. And I think it was a 5.5 minute clip out of the full hour. Okay. Put that out. And then I created another one where Ben talked about, and we talked about Alberta, and he said, here's the reason why I believe it's one of the best places out there. And I said, well, why should you invest in Alberta? Right. And I think the title of that one was Top Analyst Predicts Alberta to be the best real estate investing opportunity. And then a third one is at the end, I said, Ben, in 3 minutes, give me a summary of what's going on in the market and what your prediction is for the next quarter. That was the third video. So podcast episode, multiple places for the podcast, blog post, all right, 1 full-length YouTube, 3 additional YouTube. So what is that? 7 places already? Okay, so and we're not done yet. Okay, so each time I posted something on the YouTube or a podcast, I put it out onto Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. So I took those 7 different things and I just recycled them each time on 4 different platforms. So what is that? 30 different places that it's going out? And each time, and I only recorded it once, right? It was one recording. It was just broken out into multiple different places. So in here is, if you're interested in the end result, here was the results. So the podcast has had over 680 downloads so far. I think it's my second most popular download podcast. My average listener listens on a 60-day basis about almost 3 hours at times. So there's hours and hours. If every person listened, even if it was a half an hour, what would that be? 300 hours on that one episode? Even if they listen to half of it. My full-length YouTube is now have 1,200 videos, and the additional 3 of them added up are over 4,000 views each, okay? And then, so I've had a minimum of 20 different posts, minimum. Multiple Facebook groups, 1 content piece has now generated over 6,000 views and downloads. 1 piece, okay? And then that was 9 months ago. I recorded it in February. I have not done one thing with it since. I haven't. And right now, if I was to jump into my analytics, as I said, I think it's, 14 views in the last 2 days. So it's still or 18 views. It's still working for me 9 months later. And that was just on one of the videos. So this stuff works, gang. Just make sure you just lean into it. So that was the end result of that case study. Now, here's what I would suggest you do. So here's a couple key mantras that you want to, mantras. Create once, divide, and conquer, right? Create once, do the work once, then utilize that work for years to come. And then the last one is both work hard and work smart. Okay, so a couple simple next steps that I'd like everybody to do from here, if you will. Simple next steps. Now, some of these next steps are almost identical to the next steps that I shared last month, okay? So next step number 1 is that you have to commit and trust the process. It works. It truly does. Like, honest to goodness, when I was pulling together that case study, I sit there and go, yeah, this process works. Why am I not doing more of it? Right? And I think I told the joke earlier about, yeah, sure, here, take my advice. I'm not using it, right? So I got to start taking my own advice. I got to do it more. Now, I'm committing to put more of this content together. I'm committing to do more of slicing and dicing and distributing it more, and just trust the process, right? And just start creating. It really, it's difficult. Now, I'm not here to try to tell you, to scare you, that creating content and shooting videos and having stuff like that, I'm not here to tell you that that it's going to be easy. It's not going to be a work in progress. It's going to be difficult. And to be honest, that's good. I'm glad it's difficult. I'm glad it's difficult, that you're going to work hard and you're going to appreciate the creative process of doing the work. And the more work you do, it's just like if you wanted to go run a marathon. After you've run that marathon, you're exhausted, but you're so proud of yourself because you did the work. It was difficult, but that's good. Okay? Lean into the difficult. Leverage, and remember, PRP, pre-plan, record, post-production. That's the formula. And then just keep doing it. Continuous improvement, and just do it anyways. Even if you don't feel like it, that's when you need to do it even more. All right. Now, here's what I'm going to share with you is the following. I'm going to share you an example of what can happen if you actually just do the work. Okay, so it's funny. I was just on the Raising Capital Academy, and I sat there and I took a look at all the webinars that were done. I think the first one was done a couple of years ago now, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Webinar number 1 was done, and then webinar number 24 was done. Now, I look at this when I go back and I analyze this again, looking between my first one and my 24th one, and today's the 25th one within the community. I've done hundreds of others at the same time. But it is a completely different experience. Like, honestly, if you start watching them in sequence, I was watching the first one, and I'm going, oh my God, I was embarrassed almost. Like, the content was fantastic. I believe it was fantastic. At that time, I thought I did the best I could at that time. I thought it was amazing, but I'm sitting there watching it, and it's all blown out, and there's washed out my face, and the camera's way up here pointing down on me, and there's a whole bunch of reverb and echo in the room, and it just sounded horrible. And I'm just going, oh man. But then a couple years later, I produced that last podcast. I had it done from creation, record, and edit probably within 4 or 5 hours in total. And the edit part of that, honest to goodness, when I'm done with this tonight, and I do some clipping out here, I do some vocal processing on it. I clean up a few things. I clean up some mouth clicks. I clean up a little bit of reverb. I put some compression, some EQ, and just stuff like that. Honest to goodness, that's an hour at the most, and it's ready to go in a good polished production. Boom! If you'd like to see a few more videos like this, only a couple simple next steps from here. Number 1, subscribe. There will be a link right down here to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss an upcoming episode. And over here will be a hand-picked playlist and a video for you to watch to continue your journey forward. All right, let's go!